Good morning, everyone. Could I just encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to please take your seats, and we'll kick off very shortly. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for braving the rather inclement weather outside and for attending the second of our Ready for Brexit series of events, the first being held in January of this year. Before I pass over to the Chief Minister, who will open the event, I just wanted to give some brief safety announcements. We aren't anticipating a fire drill at any point today, so if you do hear a continuous alarm, please make your way out through the doors at the rear of the room and down the stairs out onto the square. I should also say that we will be filming portions of the event today, but we won't be showing any of the audience. In addition, you'll be able to view recordings of all of the events on Facebook. At the end of today, we also have a Q&A session where there'll be a panel of ministers who will be able to answer any questions that you might not get answered in the session this morning or throughout the day. So we'd encourage you to log on to www.slido.com and use the hashtag JSYBrexit. And you'll be able to put up all your questions on there, either with your name or anonymously. And at the Q&A session at the end of the day, we'll try and get those answered for you. So please enjoy. Thank you again for your attendance. And I'll pass across to Senator John Lafondre, Chief Minister.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for giving up your time to be here today. But to be honest, and I think we're all probably feeling a bit of Brexit fatigue, it's hard not to feel it, but it's hard also to try and escape. But that doesn't mean we can be complacent. Brexit, in whatever form it takes, will have a profound impact on the island, impacting on our way of life, our businesses, and our relationships with others. And it could happen in its most dramatic form with no deal in place in only 25 days. So we must be ready. And if that means repeating important messages or confronting difficult issues, then that is what we will do. As Christians mentioned, today's events, including this one, will focus on the short, medium and long-term impacts of Brexit. Senator Gorse will shortly update you on the island's preparations for a no-deal Brexit, the wider work underway to support residents and businesses as part of the Jersey Brexit Ready campaign. Then Kate Nutt, Group Director of External Relations, will discuss some of the longer-term impacts and opportunities for Jersey. Because whatever the outcome, deal or no deal, it is unavoidable that Brexit will lead to a generational change. But first, I wanted to focus my introductory remarks on the impact Brexit will have on the island's existing international relationships. So our island thrives not simply on the hard work and ingenuity of the people who live here, but also the strength of Jersey's external relationships with other countries and regions. The sheer pace of change makes managing those relationships very challenging. So, for example, since Ready for Brexit week in January, we've seen 2 Prime Ministers, with Boris Johnson replacing Theresa May, 3 different Brexit days in March, April and now October, and a number of so-called meaningful votes on different Brexit deals, all voted down in Westminster, and with us entering our 4th year since the EU referendum in June 2016. So despite the changes, the Government of Jersey's Brexit objectives remain to maintain the fundamentals of our relationship with the UK, to maintain the benefits of our relationship with the EU, to seek benefit from global opportunities, and to engage closely with stakeholders. These objectives have served us well as we face such unprecedented challenges at regional, UK, and EU level. Whatever the outcome of Brexit, the island needs to focus on good relationships at all levels, and we invest a great deal of time and effort in this aspect of our work. At regional level, we engage closely with the other Crown dependencies, particularly through the programme of joint working with Guernsey, which includes a number of work streams focusing on our shared Brexit preparations. We also work closely with local partners in the UK, such as the authorities in Hampshire, who have responsibility for Portsmouth International Port, on which so much of the island's supply chain even depends. Now, I know Ian will say more about this cooperation shortly. The key regional relationships with France are coordinated through the Bureau des Îles Anglo-Normandes office in Caen. And Jersey has made itself important to the regions by expanding cooperation through partnership agreements with Ille-et-Vilaine in Brittany and Normandy-la Manche. This helps our travel and trade links and ensures many of our students can enjoy the enriching experience of studying abroad. And on Friday, we participated in the annual political summit with Normandy and Cherbourg with La Manche to highlight the value of our links with Normandy and in particular to discuss Brexit, fishing and regional cooperation. At the EU level, we have the Channel Islands Brussels office, CIBO, which helps promote and protect our interests at EU national level. We've worked hard in recent years to develop our direct relations with the EU institutions and with member states, and this includes assessing the impact of Brexit on our core continuing business objectives relating to tax and financial services. The work of the Brussels and Caen offices is part of a multi-pronged approach because we also pursue this bilateral engagement through the London embassies of EU member states, and that's with the help of the Jersey London office. But it also goes without saying that the most critical relationship on Brexit is that with the UK. Our shared history, culture and prosperity will continue to underpin these close ties. And this engagement takes place at many levels, with the main political parties at party conferences and directly at Westminster, through bodies such as the British Irish Council and the British Irish Parliamentary Assembly, where I'm proud to have represented the interests of Jersey, and of course through our close and enduring relationship with the UK government, both in terms of cooperation on no-deal impacts and in the context of future trade development. Now, over the past 3.5 years since the referendum in the UK, we've worked consistently and cooperatively with the UK on a wider range of matters. And I'm confident this long-established relationship will continue as we move closer towards the UK's departure from the EU and understand more about the next phase of the Brexit process. So our purpose as the government of Jersey is to serve and represent the best interests of the island and its citizens. We did not choose for Brexit to take place, but we must face head-on its consequences for the island. Uncertainty from Brexit will impact the island's economy and society if we fail to plan for and respond to the challenges I've outlined. So I hope you find today's sessions useful and interesting, whether it's for yourself, for your family, your community, or your business. And I hope the key message you take away is that we are resilient and we are prepared, whatever form Brexit takes. So to tell us more about how the government is responding to the challenges of a potential no-deal outcome, I'd now like to pass over to the Minister for External Relations, Senator Ian Gorst. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. As the Chief Minister has just said, it's very easy at this stage, having had 3 Brexit dates and no one, not only in this room, but nor in a room or a building in the United Kingdom, knowing for sure whether we will have a 4th, a 5th, and any other number above that. But we, right from the moment of the referendum in 2016 and before, decided that it was a prudent thing for the Jersey government to do to prepare for all eventualities. That is difficult because what we are talking about in Brexit is the unstitching of a legal arrangement which the UK has been forging ever closer relationships with the EU for around 40 years. It's good for lawyers and constitutional experts, but for practical politics and everyday individuals, it's extremely difficult to know quite how Brexit will end. And of course, if you speak to the Swiss, they would say that a relationship relationship with the European Union when you are so close to the continent or embedded in the continent of Europe is extremely difficult to unpick and never stops. And that's despite the fact that the new government in the United Kingdom very much wants to, in its own terminology, get Brexit done. So we have been preparing here for a no deal, and that's what my remarks will focus upon this morning. Hopefully some of you in the audience have seen the report or preliminary report of the Jersey Fiscal Policy Panel. We will be, or they will be, publishing a full report. In fact, I think we've just had it emailed to us. We don't get sight of it before any member of the public. And it's fair to say that in a no-deal, worst-case scenario, the effects on our economy here will be difficult, as they will be in the United Kingdom. They've looked at what would happen and some of the assumptions coming out of the Bank of England and such bodies. And if you mirror that, as our economy does with a lag, certainly around inflation and elements like that, it will be difficult for us. But there are long-term opportunities. We should never forget that, whichever side of the political divide we are, whether we think Brexit is the sunny uplands or an unmitigated disaster, and Kate will come and talk about some of those opportunities for us into the future. We're not saying she's got the most difficult job this morning, but you may think that. Last week, the UK government published its final deal. We've heard that term before, of course. Don't forget that. Its final deal, which we've not heard this term, but the reality is it's a warmed-up version of Prime Minister May's deal, but just without the backstop. And instead of that backstop, there's been a number of suggestions, none of which have been written down in a legally worded document that the EU can properly discuss, and therefore this week we see the officials discussing at a very technical level, as they have been doing ever since Boris Johnson became Prime Minister, discussing at a very technical level how they can get a deal. And we, of course, heard over the weekend that President Macron is saying this is the week to actually try and get a deal in advance of the EU Council meeting at the end of between 15 and they should know by the 19th whether a deal has been agreed or not. This is also the week that we will see the second prorogation of Parliament, the first one having been deemed by the Supreme Court to not have been a prorogation after all, so we could argue this is actually the first one, and it would seem to commentators to be perfectly legitimate because it's simply for a few days to have a Queen's speech at the start of next week. For those of us who are interested in politics, I understand that will be right in the middle, or at least at the end of the SNP party conference, but that's another matter altogether. But the government is very much driving towards a no deal, and that's why we have tried, where possible, to plan. We've changed the structure in government. We've created a task force looking at the issues that we would face in a day one no deal. We have the OneGov Brexit team comprising from officials right across a number of departments, and albeit that I think those officials thought that their job would be over and done with by now, sadly that is becoming a routine feature of their daily job, and in fact, rather than doing it off the side of their desk as they have been doing for a number of months, that is now all they are focusing on, and over the course of this month they will be joined by other colleagues. They'll be looking and have looked at supply chain, critical national infrastructure, and the impacts upon the most vulnerable members of Jersey community. We've also, you'll have seen in the media, strengthened the emergency planning procedures and strengthened the Emergencies Council as a stopgap provision should the worst case happen. So we have tried to mirror, where possible, but with fewer resources and far fewer people, the models that they've got in the UK preparing for no-deal Brexit. So you'll have seen the leaking in the United Kingdom of the Operation Yellowhammer document. There was nothing in that document that was a surprise to ministers or officials in Jersey, because we had been working with the United Kingdom in that regard, and hopefully you will have seen the high-level Précis document of similar provisions that we have been making here, which we also published, I think, again, credit to our officials, within 24, 36 hours of the publication of the UK Yellowhammer document, and we're the only place of a similar size to have done. So also there's been in the media recently a lot of questions about the Operation Transmission and the leaked letter from the Hampshire Resilience Forum to the Department for Transport. We've been working very closely with the Hampshire Resilience Authority, with the Department for Transport, and with the Port of Portsmouth, and it's fair to say that some of the most recent modelling looks as though, if it were a reality without further work, and I'll come back to that, would in all likelihood cause supply chain disruption, and that's why we've been focusing on those particular areas. But as ever, with a new government, there's a new Transport Minister, Mr. Shapps, and all the Secretaries of State, the Chief Minister and I spoke to last weekend, were absolutely clear that we requested further information, further work to be done on the Department for Transport modelling, and for absolutely ensuring that the priority lanes that Channel Island supplies will have, and we've been told will have, coming through Portsmouth, are absolutely delivered in practice, and therefore they are going to go back, renew that modelling and do further work on it. So, no-deal Brexit also affects everyday islanders, and not that, of course it does because of the supply chain disruption, but other things that we have taken for granted through this 40 years of integration with the European Union. And hopefully everyone in this room by now has received their Brexit leaflet, and you'll see the wording, which is mirrored right across all of our communications. For my part, I was even pleased to hear it mentioned in church yesterday. I won't say whether it was mentioned positively or negatively. But we have undertaken the largest, I think, government communication with islanders that we have ever done. And again, for my part, as a minister in this government, I think it has been a first-class exercise in communication. Carefully explaining the challenges, but also recommending courses of action to mitigate those where possible. And of course, we know that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and we have, of course, since seen the new government in the United Kingdom undertake a very similar communication process, and we're seeing fellow Crown dependencies doing the same as well. In that leaflet, it explains what islanders can do to prepare their own homes and their own businesses for no-deal Brexit. So we've talked about top up your shop. For my part, that means getting an extra bag of pasta, an extra tin of baked beans, and an extra bag of marshmallows, but that's just a personal thing. What we're doing is asking islanders to prepare for as if there were a few days of bad weather, and topping up their shop in that regard. We're also thinking very carefully about vulnerable islanders. We've set up a helpline line, which is telephone number, I think it's there on the slide, 440401, or you can contact your parish hall, or you can speak to the Citizens Advice Bureau for all of those issues. This morning we see in the media, we could say scaremongering about the potential shortages of medicines. Officials at the Jersey Department for Health have been working very hard with their colleagues in the United Kingdom Department for Health, and I think they are as well prepared as it is possible to be. People say to me, well, they've told you that they're going to take Jersey citizens' medical needs and requirements into account. Can you believe what they've said to you? It's a very good challenge, and so not only have we had it verbally, but we've had it in black and white. Whether that's of any more value in the current political climate, it's difficult to say, but let's just be clear, we've had it now from, I think, at least 3 health ministers in the United Kingdom that we are being taken into account, that they know exactly what medical supplies that we need, or medicines actually that we need, because we are obviously preparing for winter when it comes to medical supplies, and that's a different matter altogether. And on Wednesday of this week, I, together with a colleague from Guernsey, will be meeting again with a UK health minister to have it not only in black and white, but recorded and in person again. There are another number of matters which islanders need to think about if they're travelling to the UK in the event of a no-deal Brexit in November. That's thinking about the international driving permit, thinking about which country you might be travelling to, going and visiting your parish hall, and I, for one, have found them extremely obliging. I've got to be careful, my constable's sitting on the front seat when it comes to helping to fill in that form and, of course, pay the fee. If you own a pet, the regime will change as well. You'll need a pet passport scheme. We're reverting back to, in effect, how that scheme worked right at the start before we had this much more smooth transfer through, where you have to go and visit your vet and it takes a number of months before your pet can then travel. Those of you with pets have had them for a number of years will know that's exactly how it used to be. And if you hold a UK passport, if you're a British citizen, whether that's a United Kingdom issued one or an island variant one, you also need to make sure that it's got the correct amount of months remaining on it in order to travel into the Schengen area, which is also a change from where we are today. Of course, no-deal Brexit potentially affects businesses as well, and I'm extremely grateful to the Chamber of Commerce and all the work that they have done, along with government and Jersey business, helping us to provide checklists with practical advice and signposts to key information around workforce, customs, business travel, and red tape. Yes, very sadly, there will probably be more red tape, not less, as a result of Brexit. And later today there will be a session which looks at the 5 things you must do to prepare your business for Brexit, and at that session there'll be a panel of business owners and customs and immigration and various specialists. This evening will be an opportunity to question not only the Chief Minister and myself, but other colleague ministers as well. That will be hosted by our very own, no longer, Murray Norton, and I have no doubt that he will be hosting with challenging questions this evening. Of course, we also have a session today looking at the settled status scheme, talking to the honorary consuls, and that's critically important for businesses to encourage any staff who are EU citizens who wish to remain to complete the settled status scheme, and that is going incredibly well. I think something over 6,000 so far people have registered, but there are many more to do. So that's our preparation for something that we can't actually quite know will happen or how it will happen, but I think we are as prepared today as we can be, and will continue to use the next 3 weeks to prepare, to review, and to make sure we are in the very strongest place. But if Brexit was about taking back control for the United Kingdom and forging its own trade policy, for us in Jersey, it's been really important not just to focus on Brexit Day itself, but also to think about what the future economic partnership with the European Union will be, and what our trade policy will be around the globe afterwards. And Kate will talk about a new publication that we're publishing today, which is called Let's Talk Trade, and that is really a consultation for businesses, for islanders, to talk to us and tell us what your aims and desires would be during that particular stage of Brexit. I just want to finish what I'm saying before I hand over to Kate to say publicly again that the officials in the government of Jersey have done an absolute first-class job. I cannot praise them highly enough. I know that you are surrounded by some of them who've introduced themselves, who've openly come to the hotel early this morning. They've worked all weekend, and that is something that they have been doing month after month and since 2016. And if we are in that good place that I believe we are, it is entirely down to the hard work, dedication and commitment to those people that sometimes we rather unthinkingly refer to as civil servants. But I am very grateful to them. If you feel prepared for Brexit, then I would say that they have had a large part in helping us all to feel prepared for the potential of a no-deal Brexit. And on that note, to talk about the sunny uplands, I'll hand over to Kate. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Kate Nutt, and I'm the Group Director of External Relations. Now, as we've heard from the Chief Minister and Minister for External Relations this morning, Jersey's been doing an awful lot of preparation for Brexit over the last 3 years, and indeed for a potential exit at the end of this month. But today, as the Minister said, it's as much about looking forward at the island's future as it is about the more immediate impacts of Brexit. Because once Brexit takes place, Jersey's approach to external trade will need to adapt to the new relationships between the UK, the EU and the rest of the world. We've been in discussions with the UK government for quite a while now to look at how we can lay the foundations for these new arrangements and determine Jersey's role and involvement in the UK's future trade deals. But unfortunately, trade, like Brexit, is not that easy. It can be complex. And much like the more immediate impacts of Brexit, these future arrangements could have a profound impact and effect on Jersey's economy, our environment, and our society. That's why today, I'm pleased to say, we're launching our Let's Talk Trade consultation. And if you haven't got one already, these are the glossy brochures or the consultation documents that set out the current position and what we're asking of islanders, businesses and the public to respond to, and it's also available online as well. So if you haven't got one, please do pick one up at the back on your way out. The consultation will run until the end of November and has two main objectives. The first is to inform public and businesses about the new trading rules and structures that Jersey will need to adapt to. And the second objective, crucially, is to gain your feedback on the future approach that Jersey should take. It's part of our ongoing engagement campaign, and I hope continues the open and constructive approach that we've been trying to take through this long Brexit process. So this morning I'm going to set out the context of this consultation, why we're launching it now, and how important it is. So Jersey's long been a nation or a centre of international trade. As a small island with limited resources, we've always relied on trading goods and services internationally to increase our prosperity and improve the quality of life for islanders. We've relied on the ingenuity and the talents of our people to be creative in spotting global opportunities. And we've tended to prize quality over quantity and work to develop niche products and services. Some great examples of these things are, of course, Jersey's world-famous raw potatoes and the strong demand for Jersey milk and oysters around the globe. And we must also recognise our services industry, particularly financial services, with our well-deserved reputation for professionalism and expertise. All these things have enabled us to build business and custom with those beyond our shores. And in a trading sense, the relationship between Jersey and the Crown is also central, because the royal charters have granted us important privileges over the centuries in the trading sphere, such as the freedom from import duties at English ports. Now, the long-standing freedom of trade between the UK and Jersey has been confirmed, helpfully, in modern customs legislation, and the signing of a new customs arrangement in November last year established a post-Brexit customs union. This is the latest renewal of a practice over several centuries that neither the UK nor Jersey would impose import tariffs on goods produced in each other's territories. So maintaining this close relationship with the UK remains a key Brexit objective for the Government of Jersey, and it's a crucial factor underpinning our constitutional relationship. Whatever the outcome of Brexit, the relationship with the UK will remain the most important thing, and it will remain our most important economic partner. And that relationship also lays the basis for a positive outcome for our future trading links with the EU and other global partners. Because looking firstly at the European Union, while the UK may be leaving, our geographical proximity and our varied economic links mean that maintaining positive relations with EU institutions and the remaining 27 member states is going to be crucial, including with our nearest neighbour, France. As a well-regulated and transparent financial centre, Jersey is committed to being a good neighbour to our international partners, and we're determined to maintain and further the strong and sustainable links with the EU 27. But beyond the UK and the EU, the Government of Jersey has continued to develop measures to boost trade in global economies through our global market strategy. As this slide demonstrates, and as the EU itself estimates, over 90% of economic growth in the next 10 to 15 years will be in markets outside of Europe. So the overriding vision of the global market strategy is to position Jersey as a more influential international partner by developing our commercial and political links with some of those jurisdictions. The strategy also places great importance on expanding Jersey's bilateral network of international agreements with those countries, and overall strengthening the ties, encouraging greater business links, and promoting Jersey's good reputation as a trusted and responsible international actor. So I hope that sets the scene a little bit in terms of our trading partners. But what are we actually trading at the moment and indeed in future? Well, it's true that most goods that are consumed on Jersey are imported, and we need to maintain that inbound trade to retain the quality of life that we've come to expect. Jersey's export trade, though, is of course also really significant, and it supports businesses that are traditional to Jersey, such as farming, fisheries, and dairies. Each year, over 30,000 tonnes of Jersey Royals are exported, mainly up north to the UK. Nearly 15 million litres of milk are produced on island, and there's an increasing demand for that product to be exported elsewhere. And 1,400 tonnes of shellfish are landed in Jersey, and again, the majority of that goes south. So Jersey's agricultural exports are worth about £42.5 million, and our fisheries, which includes oysters and shellfish, are worth about £6.5 million to Jersey's economy. And beyond the UK and the EU, there are also opportunities in this sphere. We're seeing export of ice cream to China and whelks to South Korea, for example. We want to ensure in future that Jersey is able to take advantage of these trading opportunities further afield as we develop our international trade policy. And looking to services, well, Jersey's been an international finance centre for more than 50 years, and it continues to play a dominant role in our economy, employing over 14,000 people and accounting for about 40% of GVA. In addition to financial and professional services, which provide the biggest proportion of our trade, our digital and tourism sectors are now playing an increasingly significant role in ensuring our economy can grow, innovate and diversify. And digital in particular, at the moment, it has around 1,400 businesses and employs around 3,000 professionals working in digital roles. So our economy is successful and it is diversifying, but as both the Chief Minister and the Minister for External Relations set out, the post-Brexit trading context raises a complex set of new challenges for us, and this will require our approach to change. So, what exactly is changing? Well, over the last 40 years, member states of the EU have increasingly developed a collective approach to their external trade policy. External trade agreements that the UK is party to have been negotiated exclusively by the EU. So when the UK leaves, the UK is going to have to negotiate and agree its international trade agreements with the EU and further afield on its own. Now, for us, as I said earlier, we have the customs arrangement already in place, and that secures us continuity of tariff-free trading goods with the UK post-Brexit. But once the UK leaves the EU, Jersey's current relationship with the EU, known as Protocol 3, will fall away. So in addition to losing the ability to be able to trade freely in goods with the EU, we will also lose access to trade deals that we previously had access to via the UK's membership of the EU to the extent of Protocol 3. And we're going to have to agree newer relationships with the European Union and with those partners further afield if we want to access those markets. So the rules that govern our goods trade will need to change. For example, in some areas, such as agriculture and fisheries, we're going to need to look at whether we align, in a regulatory sense, with the UK or the EU in future, depending on whether the UK diverges from the European Union. And although Jersey is outside the EU for services, the landscape there is likely to change too. For example, the EU is likely to change the regulatory requirements that we'll have to meet. And for financial services, where previously we've been able to pick and choose where we've had market access by being able to demonstrate equivalence, I think in the future that ability to pick and choose won't be quite the same. And market access in one area is going to require the adoption of more regulation than perhaps previously was the case. Additionally, we're seeing that services are now more readily in the kind of future free trade agreements that the UK is looking to strike with non-EU markets. So Jersey will need to consider how our economy is going to benefit from access to those FTAs. And there are other effects too. Our future trade decisions could have an impact on consumer choice, on standards, the availability and the price of the goods that we buy. The approach that the UK's current Prime Minister is taking differs from his predecessor. Civil servants are looking at looser arrangements with the European Union and focusing more on deals with partners further afield, for example, the USA. Jersey has been asked to give a clear policy direction to the UK government as to how we might prioritise those agreements, how we prioritise our engagement with those jurisdictions, as well as how we wish to be involved. So this is why this new phase of engagement with Jersey's business and residents is taking place. So in conclusion, what we want to do is understand how islanders think we should engage on external trade decisions. We want to identify the key challenges, risks and opportunities with respect to prospective foreign free trade agreements. And we want to work closely and consult businesses and trade bodies and civic society as a whole. So I hope this presentation, while necessarily quite high level at this stage, has been helpful. The consultation itself gives more detail, and we'd really welcome your feedback on the longer term impacts of Brexit in respect of trade. As well as providing comments on the consultation itself, as I said, it runs to the end of November. There's time for Q&A today, and as the Minister said, we've got a whole programme of events as well. So at that note, I think we do have time for some questions. Thank you very much.
So as Kate just said, there is 10 minutes or so for questions. There is a roving mic. I think Christian has got it. There is a full hour of questions and answers, hopefully answers anyway, this evening from 5:30 till 6:30. There are one or two other ministers dotted around the room this morning. So please, we will endeavour to answer any questions you may have, if you want to.
We've also stunned them into silence.
Okay, we did need to keep going. I know it's 9 o'clock, and I, of course, would rather you were all out there driving economic growth and getting back to your desks and your shops and hotels. So thank you very much indeed for coming this morning. I do, as the Chief Minister said, appreciate that we probably are a little bit in the Brexit fatigue area, and that, of course, concerns me because we're not certain that we'll have got it done by the end of this month. But thank you very much indeed for taking time. As we said said earlier, there is a helpline. You can always go to the parish hall or to Citizens Advice Bureau, or come and contact either the Chief Minister or myself or officials, and we will endeavour to support you in any way we can. But thank you very much indeed for coming this morning. We hope to see some of you at the various events during the course of today. Thank you very much.
Don't forget, at 5:30, if you do think up some questions that you would have liked to ask us now, that is the opportunity then to hold our feet to the fire properly. So hopefully we'll see some of you then as well. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.